Hello, this is our Tibetan Buddhism project. My name is Marcus.
My name is Mason.
I'm Charlie.
And I'm Daniel.
We got quite the presentation for you, so get ready. So, the reason why we picked our topic of the Dalai Lama is because we were all really just drawn to him as a person and what he kind of represents. It's really fascinating that this one individual has been reincarnated over generations and is the face of Buddhism, and sometimes he seems to be the face of so much more. In his book that we're reading, Beyond Religion, he really goes into kind of the secular nature of his job, and his promotion to peace and safety around the world is kind of super inspiring. And so we just wanted to take a deeper dive into kind of what the Dalai Lama represents and the history of him.
The 14th Dalai Lama was born on July 6, 1935, in northeastern Tibet. Tenzin Gyatso, previously known as Lama Dondup, was recognized as the reincarnation of the 13th Lama, Tubten Gyatso, at the age of just 2 years old. Gyatso began his education to become the Dalai Lama at the age of 6, which personally I think is crazy, being told that you're a religious leader at the age of 6 and having to start an education to lead a people. He completed his education at the age of 23 when he obtained his Geshe Larampa degree, which is the highest degree obtainable in Buddhism. In 1950, Gyatso assumed full political power of Tibet during the Chinese invasion. However, he was forced into exile in India. For the next 40 years, he spent time in exile and eventually moved back to Tibet and began to draft and work towards a new constitution for Tibet after his exile. In 1989, he was recognized for his pursuit of peace in Tibet and received a Nobel Peace Prize for his efforts. On March 14, 2011, the Dalai Lama formally resigned from his political position as head of the state of Tibet. He stated that he'll hold a conference when he's 90 years old to decide whether or not the reincarnation of the Dalai Lama will continue after him, meaning that there may no longer be reincarnations of the Dalai Lama after the 14th, and that Buddhism as a whole will lose a religious figurehead.
One of the Dalai Lama's major ideas is this idea of secular ethics that was just mentioned, and so he thinks that in order to have like a good moral code that anyone from any religion can follow, you need to separate ethics from religion, because even though he is obviously a religious leader, he sees that there's value to secular opinions, and secular opinions obviously don't uh, correlate to a single religion. You can transcend religion that way. And so, a big part of secular ethics that he mentioned as well was this idea of compassion, which I think is very interesting. And I find that, like, I agree with in the idea of like altruistic punishment. Like, you're not just punishing criminals just for the sake of punishing them, but instead you're trying to make it so that they are able to improve their lives, and that they don't end up like in a worse place than they were before, which is obviously something that I mentioned that I agree with, because I think it just improves the world as a whole, which is also something that I feel like the Dalai Lama is like trying to go for. And so secular ethics is just one of the Dalai Lama's goals, which was mentioned by our speaker in class. And so secular ethics belongs in the promotion of human values, but he also wishes to promote human affection. So pretty much just like having people love each other, religious harmony, so no religious conflict, preservation of Tibetan culture and environment, because some of the like Tibetan like Buddhist literature has been like lost over the years. So obviously, like, you want to preserve and like cherish all of the works of like Buddhism, and the revival of Indian knowledge, especially psychology through the Nalanda tradition, which includes techniques like mental projection.
Something very interesting about the Dalai Lama and kind of what he represents is this idea of reincarnation. As we've learned in class with Tibetan Buddhism, everyone, all beings are in this cycle of reincarnation where it's determined about your karma of where you're going to end up, whether it be with the gods or the hell beings, the beasts or the humans. And it's been determined that being a human is actually the best option because you're able to know about Buddhism, know about all the different practices, and able to achieve kind of enlightenment. And with Dalai Lama in particular, this lineage has been going on um, for centuries, really. And kind of the process in which it's done varies, but it would appear that most Dalai Lamas actually are able to write out um, who they know they are going to be reincarnated in, and the letter won't be opened until their death. There's actually a bunch of other people in Buddhism that also have lineages. Some of those people are chosen based off the baby is just they pick some objects in the right order, or the followers of that person are able to determine who the next reincarnation is. And it's kind of an interesting thought because the idea of reincarnation that you yourself are going to die, but you're going to be reborn as someone else. It's kind of interesting in that the Dalai Lama knows that his responsibilities are going to extend beyond his life and go on to those of the many others. For this particular Dalai Lama, though, the 14th Dalai Lama, he's made it clear that he might actually choose not to reincarnate. I'm not sure of his specific reasons why, but it I guess he's either decided that he no longer wants to continue this chain, or that maybe the world he's imparted his knowledge long enough. Regardless, though, I think the idea that this one continuous leader throughout history is a fine notion to have, and the idea that your legacy doesn't die with you, you just carry it on, is interesting thought.
So I wanted to talk about Dalai Lama's thoughts on suffering and happiness. He claims that all humans are on a quest to find happiness and avoid suffering. And he said that the main factors that go into happiness are wealth, health, and friendship. So starting with wealth, Dalai Lama said that the benefits of wealth only temporarily increase happiness, but don't do it permanently. So getting things like a new phone or a computer or a car may make you happy in like that specific moment, but in the long run it doesn't like really make much of a difference. So then the Dalai Lama went on to say that sometimes more wealth could even lead to anxiety and stress. And I agree with this because it's something that I witness almost every day in my hometown. Families will go out of their way to flaunt their wealth, and they waste so much money and time buying fancy cars, jackets, watches, and like other stuff. And they try to show off their money, and it just becomes really an unnecessary competition. I even find that this competition exists between me and my friends, which is ridiculous because we're friends because we like each other and not because of our money. With health, I feel like being healthy may not necessarily make you happy, but bad health can really contribute to your suffering. I think most people expect to be healthy, so when they are healthy, they don't think that much of it. But when they're in bad health, they feel much worse. And I think that friendship and companionship is also very important to being happy. Although Dalai Lama claims that this only brings temporary happiness, I feel that a constant positive presence from another person would make myself and many other people feel happy all the time. Especially today, since people are always communicating with their friends through social media, they talk to each other more, and I think that it could be more long term than just temporary happiness. So, Dalai Lama said that wealth, health, and friendship are all external and lead to what he calls the first level of satisfaction, but he claims that this doesn't lead to real happiness. He said that the real source of happiness comes from our state of mind, our motivation, and our level of warm heartedness towards others, which he calls the second level of satisfaction. And this is also internal and comes from our mental state. So I think that generally having a more positive outlook on life and a more positive outlook and perception of life will make people happier, and this would give hope to anyone who's suffering, no matter how bad of a situation someone is in. Just having a better attitude would make someone happier and even make everyone around them happier also. So overall, I thought the Dalai Lama's thoughts about happiness were very interesting, and they're something that I could learn from. So from now on, when I'm going through something tough, I'll try to focus on staying positive, since I think that this could help make me and others happier.
The 14th Dalai Lama was a lot more than just a religious figurehead to the people of Tibet. During a time of war, he rose to power and was a political figure as well as a religious one. He led the people through a tough time, and he didn't just lead them religiously, he also helped make a constitution. He parleyed for peace, and he respected all religions as well as Buddhism.
Just kind of one final thought when we're wrapping up our presentation about the Dalai Lama is something interesting to think about is that he's really is just a man. In Buddhism, it all started with the Buddha, who was not a deity of any kind. He was just a guy. And it's kind of carried on to the Dalai Lama how just a mere mortal can really just influence the lives of so many people across the face of the earth. To, at the age of 6, finding out that you're this figure, that you have this kind of responsibility, it really amazes me how he's been able to just conquer all those odds and get beyond it.